time. No, it's not. It's a very important step. We're on the record. So,
how does 21st look for people?
I have a conflict.
That's not good.
yeah.
Well, did you guys, I know the ones that are, I know you two particularly have got issues.
21st is not.
I brought my issues up in the meeting. They're all related to the Sutherland County clause of them being able to control the development, not having a USU extension in it.
But we could have a further discussion maybe to tighten that up and see, because we did put a little provision in there with doing the development, the 60-day.
I'd say the 30th, but this one.
But what she's saying is we can share those concerns.
Yeah.
And they can
I know,
be
that's my concern, but.
It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make any sense to come into a meeting and just work with what we've got. We really need John and Bruce to go back and recraft and retool and put that USU extension, but.
Well, we ought to have Doug
zoning
here
density,
too.
things
That
like
ought to be a discussion that we have with him. It's not us. So if he's here, we can have that interchange.
Okay, so what date?
You guys come up with a date and let me know. I'll make it happen.
I mean, the 30th would be great as far as scheduling, because that's in the schedule.
It's fine with me.
I'm good for the 30th.
We could stay all night, so we'll.
That's gonna be a long meeting, isn't it? Going over.
Mine's 9.
Oh,
It might not be.
That'd be an early meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm gonna try and get you guys all the chapters first of next week.
With all the red lines in it.
You guys read through the red lines.
What time are we starting? Did we set a time?
We usually start at 6, so you guys could even start at 5 if you wanted to.
Be okay with that.
So you guys could do an hour before the planning commission got there.
Have them come in at 6:30 and we've got an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I had to go. Just to make sure you, too, is, you know, we looked at the agenda for December 13th, and it has lots of stuff. And so when you add back the Adeline, you add back the Danzy, it gets very, very large. And so I'm just saying, if you want to just have a meeting for just this periphery stuff that would, you know, the other stuff for the camera policy, the phone policy.
Those are consent agenda.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we don't want to give them to you consent until you've had a chance to have them do a work meeting.
We could just.
They haven't denied.
I know. I'm just, okay.
We just want you to know you have it, look it over, got any concerns, get back on this, that's all we're gonna discuss about it. How's that? Love it? Move on, thanks.
So what did have we,
The 30th.
30th for sure, 5
30th.
o'clock?
5 o'clock?
Okay, works. We just send an invite out to someone.
What's that one? I missed something on the 30th?
Yeah.
We have a meeting and we're gonna expand it, it's gonna be a longer meeting.
So you wanna do council at 5, you wanna stay till 6:30? And then have the planning
I'd say
commission,
whatever,
or just say 6?
whatever you all think, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt if the planning commission came at 6.
No,
We're
it
like
wouldn't
finishing our discussion,
Yeah.
and we review with them where we're at, and they have an idea of what this agreement looks like.
Okay.
I mean, there's no harm in that, so.
Okay. Right, so 10 minutes, we should be able to get through these items, is
Yep.
that?
Love it.
8.2, City Hall fee structure.
Okay, let's just slow down again.
Okay, so, I don't know if this is working or not.
It'll be even shorter.
It works now.
Does it work now?
Push the button, go. To the very end.
Okay, so, with the addition of the new building, we've, find it necessary that we need to reevaluate our rental fees that we're charging for some of the rooms. So, no, I'm not touching that. Somebody do that?
You want it back?
Yeah, just back it up one. So this is what we're currently charging, for the community center up here. So we charge a flat rate of $50 for the room rental. If they need the kitchen, it's an additional $25. If they need audio video equipment, additional $25. The $100 is a refundable security deposit if they take care of the building. Notice that there is no differentiation between fees for residents and non-residents. Okay, let's go ahead and bounce to the next one. Here are some comparisons from neighboring cities of what they charge for rooms. Most of their
fees are based on an hourly rate. They also have a non-resident fee that is usually half again or double of what their normal rates are. South Jordan does some interesting things. They charge a different rate for business hours versus after business hours. So this is what they would charge a resident during business hours. This is a resident after business hours, or a non-resident during business hours, and then a non-resident after business hours. I talked to all of these different places, and the size of the rooms that they're renting are substantially smaller than the rooms that we have in this building. The medium room at Riverton is about 238 square feet. The room at their large room is 720 square feet. Our old building is, the old community center is 1,282 square feet. Our small side, the A side down here in the Bingham Canyon room, is 1,373. The large side is 1,733, and combined they're 3,106. So let's jump to the next slide. We looked up the Veridian Center, Salt Lake County owned and operated facility here. They have more in line with the type of room that we have, where they divide the rooms up. You can open them up for larger things. They do some interesting things. They have a 4-hour minimum. If you're a nonprofit group, it's $50 an hour. If you're just a standard person or standard rate, it's $125 an hour. If you combine A and B, then it's twice that rate. If you combine A, B, and C, it's 3 times that rate. They also charge different rates. They charge time and a half rates for Sundays and holidays. They also charge an individual fee for any of the type of equipment that you use, and they also have staff rates. So if a staff member helps set up your facility, it's $20 an hour. If they have to clean up afterwards, it's $20 an hour. Security, they would charge whatever police officer would charge, or a security officer plus 10%. Okay, so let's jump to the next one. So here's what we would like to get some feedback on what direction you'd like us to go with our fees.
Yes, question one, this says, I was waiting for it, the slide. I haven't seen this, just for, that lobby space that we have is significant, with a lot of nice amenities to it. In fact, I just had yesterday another request when we were gonna approve a schedule, because they wanna plan their son's wedding here in August. So lobby is a big piece of that, and I think we need to figure that part of the price, because the cleaning of that area and stuff is gonna be expensive.
Yeah, let me just tell you, this is gonna kind of be off topic a little bit, because I'm concerned about that lobby area and kids going up and stairs and the liability you have. I mean, are we gonna have this council chambers secure? Cause those doors.
Yes, yeah, those lock up. Right now, we've been leaving them open for the meetings, but we
I
can
just
lock
think
them.
about, there's so many things, if you get a little kid tumbling down the stairs, and how are we preparing for the liability in terms of that?
Our insurance company.
It's a public building, so that can happen
Yeah,
at
any day.
any time that they're.
I know, but.
At our first council meeting here, did you not watch
You're
outside
thinking
the window?
after hours when
I
there's.
was just
Right.
thinking half hour, somebody comes in and rents it.
But to Monty's point, I mean, that's for the insurance company to worry about.
We do bull riding here.
We also used to do mutton busting.
Well, that's because we don't want to go.
But I think that's a good point, because it is a nice area, and I mean, my daughter's like high school dance group, whatever it was, they came over and wanted to take pictures on the stairs.
That's a good point.
And we said that in the beginning, you're gonna create places, it's gonna be a photo place, our park and this. That's not a surprise, but it was built that way for the community. So I'm not worried about the liability.
But I think you're right, I
as
mean,
much
it's more than just.
As much as the cleanliness and any repairs we may have to make, because it will happen.
So at this point, I hadn't added the lobby in. Most of the places, most people when they rent it, they're gonna be coming through the lobby anyways, but if, we could definitely add that in as an additional fee.
Just
I
like
know.
today at the senior citizens luncheon, the magic was walking out and looking at the seniors. They stopped, they sat down, they talked for a little while longer. There was the magic what you created.
I don't know that we can add an additional fee for the lobby, cause
No,
how do
it
you
just
close
doesn't
the
lobby.
lobby?
Specific
I
use
would-
of the lobby.
I would just
specific-
incorporate
I
it in the
agree.
fee.
Yeah.
It's a cleaning fee.
Well, and here's the trick with the lobby is
damage.
if somebody wants to rent, say Bingham Canyon A, and so a different group wants the lobby, how do you
Yeah.
work that out and separate those? But I think we do need to have a separate fee for the lobby if they want the exclusive use of that, because I think that will be a draw.
Yes,
Some of the-
and I agree with you, Coralie, because I see someone rent and say, can I rent out Sunday afternoon, come take my bridals on the stairway? I can see that happening.
Some of the facilities have actually a pre-function lobby area that they charge additional fee if you wanna utilize that. At the Veridian Center, a lot of times when you go to a conference over there, they'll set their booths up out in the lobby area and you work through them, and so they're paying an additional fee for that.
Should we have some consideration though for citizens versus outside? I'm just saying it's a public building and.
That's your call. It does have-
The way that I look at it is the rates typically are quite a bit cheaper than what you'll pay most places you go to. And so it's more of a service to our residents by offering them a lesser rate. But however you guys decide is,
But we wanna
Would be
cover
fine.
costs, right? Because there's a cost to repair it, to clean it up, to.
so what I had in here under recommendations was if we continue to own and operate the community center, as long as we have it, we would keep the rates the same over there. I left a question mark under non-resident use over there, if that's something that we would like to add in to that.
I think the same philosophy ought to extend to both buildings that we own.
I agree.
Another version of this saved that had an additional, it had a conference room, because we do have additional conference rooms that are available with public site access to those. I had a fee thrown in there for $20 an hour on those, and $30 for.
I think we should have the conference room fee, because we do have that as an option, but it will cost for us to clean and maintain and repair any damage or whatever.
It does, and any time that people use the audio video equipment, there's a specific life cycle on those, and every time they're used, a little bit of that life's used. So we broke it down by hourly rate, and kind of went something similar to what the Veridian Center had done. So an hourly rate on A and B, and then if they're combined, it's a combined rate. Additional fees for kitchen, audio video equipment, staff setup, cleanup, security deposit. For a non-resident rate, we just added in half again the rate, so it was still a reasonable cost. 2 hour minimum if we're gonna do an hour rental, so that it stays in line with everybody else. Questions I had is, do you wanna do anything different for Sundays or holidays, or just look at them the same?
The only thing I worry about is if we have to have staff come in,
Yeah.
cover overtime.
I would
But
say,
other than that, I'm probably okay.
I'd say 150% of whatever the, minimum, if it's $50 an hour, it's 75, so that we end up covering the staff setup and
Because
clean up.
there's no way to get around staff having to come out on that.
And you may have on
There
call
is.
hours and.
With the fob, they have access to getting things, we have cameras that tell us what they're doing, what they've done. So we did that purposely after our South Lake, Texas trip. Remember they said they had to
Right.
pay for a security guard to be there?
Right.
Alan's been very methodical about camera placement. In fact, he's added more back in the community room itself, to see if we can see damage in there. So I think we'd like to see what happens, to see if there's a staff member. If they ask for a staff member to be here to clean, then they pay for it. This is my suggestion.
Would it be helpful then to have staff be 150% of the normal if it's on a Sunday or holiday, or you think you can adjust schedules so that they don't have overtime?
That's hard for that request. To flex schedule, or short right now.
So it's
So
probably
adjust
beneficial
upwards.
to say for
I would say
any
they're gonna pay for
Sundays and
overtime.
holidays, do 150% of regular charges, or the staff rate, but leave the room rental rates the same. Okay, that makes sense. Because the rooms don't have an
We could
additional
hire
cost.
another person to be on standby whenever they gets rented out, but we gotta fill that out, because that much use.
And then, right now, we do this, and I noticed a couple other cities also said that city-sponsored events are exempt from fees. So if you had an organization that was city sponsored, say the Arts Council or somebody like that, they'd be exempt.
Free Sports USA soccer and football and baseball.
The senior
Oh.
space.
So I'm throwing it out, that's why
You
it's
gotta
out
have
there.
that- well,
That fits into.
Yeah, you
You
gotta
get
have a
into the weeds.
strong city nexus, because if you
Yes.
don't, then all of a sudden you have opened yourself up to, you can't say no to any other event. It's the same idea with banners on your streets. The minute you open it up to something that is not very specific city, then the gate is open. So you
Yeah.
gotta be careful.
I think where those organizations charge a fee for participation and they're not directly city sponsored, they don't work
So-
underneath one of
Well, I'll say
the
just
council
like,
members as a liaison, I don't know that I would
just the
be okay
soccer
with
that
it.
you
That's a
mentioned,
good nexus.
those
Yeah,
organizations make tons of money. Like they're not,
There's
non-
Wendy, look,
they're
she's
not-
smiling, look
they're
at
not
her.
nonprofit.
You know where
Did you
she's
hear
going with that?
Corley's, I liked Corley's, reasoning as a nexus.
If we have a council member assigned as a liaison over that organization, community garden, arts council, whatever, that's the nexus, and then they can have that. for-
And that's
Our-
easily
Our
articulated.
area organizers, whatever, I always forget what we call that program.
Community
facilitators?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
For sure.
What fee do you wanna charge them, the resident on this, of course, it could be resident.
Well, it would say city sponsored, so they'd be exempt from the fee for those individuals. For that
I'm going back to the sports program specifically, cause they do use our other building.
They can just be
Yeah,
the
I'd
rest.
just say they,
I'd say
yeah,
they fall
if they
under
have
the-
somebody
They
that
use it
calls,
for registrations and their board meetings and.
Well, they have plenty of money to pay.
whoever it is that calls, if they're a resident, they get the resident rate, and if they're not, they can pay the non-resident rate. And I'm sure they'll find a buddy in Harriman.
And then, employees. A lot of cities advertise that they give their employees like one rental a year or something like that, or something in those lines. I know that we do have employees that
What about
request
a
it.
discount versus one rental a year? One rental a year, by the time you add up all your employees, could be significant.
Especially if you have a per hour, if you're doing, oh, I'll just take it for the whole day, and
Versus a
Yeah.
slight discount from.
maybe a 10% discount or 25% discount, or.
Well, if you're a resident, how many, we have quite a few that are employees that are residents, right? With our,
Give them a 50% discount and they have to clean it up. Technical things, right?
Clean up was a given.
But we love you, employees.
Okay, so if you're more of a discount than
A 50% discount off of the resident rates.
right?
Does that sound good? If they wanna pay for staff time, then that will be at the full cost, because that really is
That's
the same
staff time.
cost.
Yeah, that doesn't move.
But they may want to or need to, or we may have to have them pay that. So, does that work?
Oh, no, this is better, sorry.
Is that the last item?
that's it.
We're going home then.
That's
So
the
on
first.
last item. Okay, and then I guess I'm on the list.
Yeah, now you're
again.
next.
You just did this.
Now we gotta jump to a different one.
Okay, are you gonna go to the next one then, Monty, discussion
Yeah.
of the community center?
So we'll bring this back to you and you can vote on it on the 13th. We're just getting a lot of pressure, so we wanna just make sure if you have any more thoughts.
And we're not gonna schedule this meeting until we know the fee schedule.
Not sure, where's the, it was on when we were outside a little bit ago. Maybe it timed out.
Alright, there you go.
Yeah, I like having that working. Okay, so the next one is the options for the community center. Since we've moved into here and vacated that building, right before we did, we came to you with an appraiser that had completed an appraisal. And this is a summary of that appraisal. It tells us what the building appraised for, 1.6, almost 1.7. It talks a little bit about the effective age of the building and some different information like that. And when we brought that to you, you requested some additional information on some possible options of what it might look like if we leased the building or if we did some other things. So just a basic rundown on commercial leases. You have a full service lease. In this type of a lease, the landlord collects all of the fees within the rental or the lease fee and then pays for everything back out of that. So all of the taxes, insurance, maintenance, all of that stuff is collected at the time of the rent. The advantage of that type of a lease is the business owner can have a set number that he can count on every single month for his lease payments and all of his expenses, so he can forecast easier and do that. It tends to be favor the owner or the landlord quite a bit more than it does monetarily wise. You have a single net lease, that's a base rent plus the property taxes. A double net, which is base rent, I'm not touching it. Base rent, I think it says it's time to go home. Property taxes and the insurance, and then you have a triple net. Triple net is probably the most popular when you're looking around to rent space. Those include base rent, property taxes, insurance, and then CAMs, which are basic common area or basic maintenance type stuff. It does not include maintenance items for structural, parking lot, those type things. The landlord would pay for those. Okay, so if we looked at the square footage of the building that we have over here, and we went with a $12 per square foot base rate per year, this is what you would collect every year, and then with a 3% appreciation rate. These are operating costs, utilities, the insurance on that building. If we start leasing the building out, we would end up paying taxes on the building. And so it falls outside of government use. So there's what the property taxes estimated in the last few years when they did the appraisal. So in this option here, a single net, this price plus the taxes give you this number. That's what it equals out for 5 years. And then you've got a broker commission. They charge a flat rate commission off of the gross amount. A 5-year incentive, they said that most businesses right now are offering 3 months free for a signed 5-year lease. So that's factored into there. You have the operating costs are taken out, the insurance and the taxes. Taxes are collected in this amount. That leaves us with $492,000 a year. That's barring any additional major expenses on the building.
You say you do it for 5 years?
Yeah,
For 5 years, okay? Now, if we look at that with a triple net, this one, they've added, you add in CAM charges. We still have the operating costs of the parking lot and the building itself, the air conditioning units, all of that type stuff. We've got utilities, insurance, and taxes. Same thing, this is what's collected over 5 years. You got the broker commission, 5-year incentive, operating costs, insurance and taxes coming out, and you end up with $628,000 over 5 years. Additional fees and expenses, if we ended up hiring a property management group, they would charge about $23,225. Another thing that goes with a 5-year or a triple net lease is typically if the tenant wants any remodel costs or improvements on the building, most places are offering between $25 a square foot to $60 a square foot. And when I ran $60 a square foot, it runs over the top of what you would collect in 5 years, so you'd be in the hole. So that's a negotiating point of what you would work out with the tenant. And typically they don't want to remodel the whole building. They'll pick a few offices or a certain area, and you'd go off the square footage off of that. If we chose to continue to own and operate the building, right now the cost of maintenance, repair, cleaning, utilities, and everything, you're looking at about $125,000 a year. And Gordon has some, actually before we jump to that, let me give you some additional information that we pulled on some, in your packet when I sent it to you, it had some comparables. We pulled the units around here that are available for lease. So we have the plaza down here that has space for lease. They're charging $12 a square foot, which is what we figured this at. Some of the other areas are quite a bit higher, and some of the dollar amounts that they're quoting, up to $1725 a square foot, is more in line with what a full lease option would be.
But their vacancy rate is high.
They have a high vacancy rate. Right now, the average vacancy rate is about 18.4%. And so if you factor that in, you're gonna have some vacancy over there.
'Cause
On the
sight
one
line is
page that-
the sight line is completely gone with that shopping center. It's too padded out, just for future reference.
Yeah.
It's not a good.
Another couple of complications that we run into is the design of the building, the size of the building, and the location. The most important issue there is location. Now, with location, we pulled traffic counts of the other areas around here that you would basically be competing with. Down here in front of the Chevron, we have about 1,019 cars daily travel up 5600 West. Down in front of Smith's and the other areas down here, you are looking at about 14,000 cars daily. Over in front of the old city hall, you're at 1,200 daily. So the type of business that would be interested in purchasing or renting that building are gonna be more of like a family doctor's practice, dentist type stuff, things that don't require other businesses to pull in business. Now, if we talk about owning and operating the building, Gordon has had somebody approach him that's interested in the building. We talked to the county aging services. They're not interested in opening any more
We got
facilities.
an email back when they had that, when you got that. We went and visited them again, and they said,
And so I'll turn some time over to Gordon to tell you what.
So the council was kind of looking at, this is a public building, there may be some opportunity to provide services to the residents through this. The DDC we've been talking to, they have given us a letter and they would like to look at using the building to bring in UVU students, do training, do some other emergency disaster stuff that'd be available. And then when they do get their building, they would move into that and out. So what I'm saying is, if the intent, so you got three intents. One is sell the building, two, lease it, or three, do a pseudo public use of it, knowing you're not getting money out of it, but you're getting public services out of it. You know, there might be some stipend we get, but it's not like the lease where you're gonna make.
are they gonna pay for the operating costs?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So what we'd look at is they would probably pay the operating costs, but we would be netting zero, and if the building falls apart, we have to take you. So we're not gonna get money out of that. So it's basically not making us money.
Was that a hunt?
It's just
So
doing
they
services.
pay $125,000 a year for that?
They would pay utilities and
Yeah, what would you consider?
utility stuff, and then some maintenance and this cleaning and that kind of thing.
We're still in that a lot for our, we'd pay the, well.
So I guess what I'm
How do you
saying is,
justify
this
that?
would not make us any money, it's just if you want services. So I'm just throwing it out,
Thank you.
if it, they're probably not the only group we could find that would want a really cheap deal on a building, but they're one that we're aware of, and so I just wanted to give you that as an idea of an option.
Yeah, go back to the county, again, when we met with them, it was the same thing as I said the first time. Even if we gave them the building, we operate, pay for all the cost, they're still not interested in a free deal.
Wow.
So, sorry, we tried to give it away to them, but it's not an option.
The issue would be is if you had UVU and you had the public come, you might end up getting some traffic, but we'd have to certainly look at
That's
the
gonna
hotel
be my.
for economic
is
development.
With the brokers, whoever, have they given any indication of, given the location, I've had a hard time wrapping my head around how any business, family doctor's office, or lawyer, how any actual business would wanna be located right there. I would imagine that if we tried to sell it, we'd get much lower than that appraised value. If we actually tried to lease it, we'd have to drop the lease rate much lower than that.
Maybe. We've actually had,
The advantage of this would be if we could get in a situation of it doesn't cost us anything, but it's bringing people in. I don't know.
We're just throwing that out, we could be more aggressive looking at bringing you the detail. They wrote us a letter of interest, we're waiting for this presentation tonight before we can respond to them. But we just,
And with that option, the building just continues I just would offload it.
If we can.
That's what I
Yeah.
say,
I'm sure operating until we
I'm
do.
surprised, if you can, I agree with Jared, it's gonna be tough.
So I think it's good to pursue that, because I would agree, I'd rather.
In the past, we've had people approach us looking for a building to do insurance or a law firm.
And not sit there for
That
years.
are just nice, quiet day businesses. They don't mind being off the main drag.
Call center, where's your call center?
It could be, you're right, it could be a call center.
It'll take a lot of attorneys to fill
But-
that building.
But we don't know, we think the market will be soft on it, but we don't know because we've not had clear direction what you wanna do with it. If you wanna offload it and try, we will, but in the meantime, when we try to lease it until we do see if they're a buyer.
What about UPD?
It's good, like, I'll be fine.
Get them out of here.
Fine, it's
Sit
good.
right here.
He likes being here.
This space is valuable on the internet, so.
Sorry.
I don't know, pursue all three and see.
See where you at,
Yeah.
So we need clear direction, if we go out and find a broker and put out RFP, we find a broker to market it, to sell it, lease or whatever, come back with an option.
Yeah.
Is that what you want us to do?
I think the challenge will be for some of our residents that have a sentimental attachment to this building to explain what we're looking at. But I think we do need to pursue the best option
Show
and
'em
point
this.
out these figures and show that we really can't continue to
And
invest in
acknowledge the
building that's-
sentimental value, but it's still taxpayer
I visited with
dollars.
some of those.
How about a
individuals,
credit union?
And I was asked, like, I don't have sentimental value. I said, "I
Parks
don't
and
know."
Rec episode, I can see it.
It was built in 2002,
I would, I guess if I
Bring
was
it
to
on.
choose a preference that would seem to be maybe best, to kind of draw that balance, it would be the one that we get, I think it was $100,000 a year revenue approximately on the one of the, I can't remember which, if it was a
one was,
triple.
well, actually,
I
after
believe
you
it
said
was
that,
the,
$500,000.
Yeah, what is that one?
this one here.
Right. One of those options where we retain it, but we're getting some revenue that would hopefully offset any of our
But
costs.
that's based on
That's based
leasing
on,
the whole building
The
too.
whole
You,
building at
Right.
that rate.
the
Yeah, I'm
problem
just
you're gonna
saying,
have
if we
is you're
could.
gonna have a doctor's office come in and say, I don't want the whole building, I'll take a section. That's the challenge.
this.
We understand
this
there's
rate
challenges, and I've talked to you in the past, and it's sort of challenging, and they can move it. But they all say that, because they wanna.
And I don't think we'll get that much.
My biggest concern is if, and it's not my concern, it's always the council's decision and concern. If you approve the finances, we'll maintain it and take care of it. But when we mine, look at that building, the inefficiencies and what we spend out every year just on the heating, air conditioning
Yeah.
repairs.
A
I'm not
senior
talking
center
about the
was a
bills.
good idea,
Just-
but if
yeah.
that's not.
I'm talking
gonna
about
work, then-
Well, you-
every year we replace one or two condensers.
We do, and the bad thing is in about 8 to 10 years, we've got a roof coming.
Yeah.
And a roof right now, at today's rates, is running about $140 a square foot. And you can see the size of the roof down there, that's gonna be a sizable expense.
Well, with $125,000 that we sink into it every year on the cost, we'd have to rent it for more than $400 a day, even just to residents, if we hung on to it, just to break even, and that's not going to happen. So that would be 365 days. I
Well,
think we
you got
could show that-
resident perception too, why are we keeping the building? So
Mhm.
I think my vote is to move it.
And I know,
I'd
say
get
the
rid
people
of it.
that have sentimental value to it,
They really like working out your new building.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Okay,
That's fine.
should we move on?
Yep.
Do you have your direction?
Move on.
Okay, so,
I think we do.
I think we pursue both the selling and the leasing option, just see which one bites first, is kind of what I heard.
We'll go up
Selling
bid to
being
it
the
and see
best,
what,
yeah,
yeah,
the
you
preference.
see
Selling
what,
being
yeah,
the
what the
preference.
market is. And
Yeah, see what the
If the
preference
heat
is.
market's strong, we'll come back and say it's good for the market, and we'll run it out until it sells.
Right. Brent,
Until
you're
come
on.
back loose.
Really?
thank you.
Good job, Marty.
Oh, I don't need that. Let me pull it out of my select files. We have two text changes. The 8.25 zone and the low density agricultural zone, two of our favorites. The low density zone is virtually exactly the same. 8.25 is first. So 8.25 again, we brought back because we had previously, changed the ordinance to no longer use it. We determined to bring back the low density zone, but also to bring back the 8.25 zone in certain situations. The planning commission So what we did was said if you're less than 15 acres, you can still use 8.25. The planning commission said that's fine if we're gonna do it, then obviously we can remove all the, basically the incentives for PUDs. Cause if they're less than 15 acres, they're not doing a PUD anyway. And I reminded them that there may be larger properties that are already zoned 8.25 that could still fall under this, and they would need those incentives. They still wanted to remove them because I think they want to encourage those people to go to the new low density zone. Because there's just a lot better, it's got the requirement for the half acres, you know, just better stuff in there that we really wanted to encourage. That's what they wanted to encourage, so. They kept the density in 8.25 at 2.5 per acre. Whether somebody's a subdivision or chooses to do a PUD, and they removed basically there's 3 or 4 different incentives for PUDs. So again, planning commission recommended that. Just here to see if you have any questions or comments before we bring it back for a decision.
The only question I've got, Ren, is just, concern I've got is on, it says in the last line, property that is less than 15 acres may be considered for rezoning, 8.25, if the council determines it is in the best interest of the city.
Yeah.
So-
That was language that you guys had talked about when we brought it back.
But I would hope that it would automatically that it wouldn't be back to the council, that would be at the discretion of the landowner.
So they could apply to rezone.
They could apply to rezone, but I think what the intent is again, if it was gonna be better, if it was gonna work for them in their situation, you wanted to give them the option to use 8.25. But if the city felt that the low density zone was gonna be better for that property,
We didn't wanna have
then
to say yes.
you could determine that that was the better option.
Right.
So this is not necessarily an automatic approval to get 8.25. They're gonna have to determine, I think, that for their specific property, that's the best zone for them.
I like the recommendations.
Yeah, I like having the landowner have more say what they'd like to do. That was the whole idea of bringing 8.25, because if they were getting hammered on development, that they could have that option, but if the council goes in and circumvents that, then why is there 8.25?
And I would think that the council would wanna do what was best for the property, you know, if that made the most sense for how it could be developed and for, you know, what the criteria were in each zone, I would think that the council would make that decision correctly.
It's just a matter
We have
of what kind of
faith in you.
council.
I believe in you.
So,
So that's that one.
What
Other
we'd like to do
questions?
is to give any comments so we could bring it back for approval on the 13th. That's our goal. So if
I
you
think
have
I
some
heard
changes,
good,
tell us and
so.
well,
Good.
I still have some concerns about, that, again, that was the whole purpose of getting the 8.25. And again, it'll neutralize it if the council says, we think it's in the best interest, and it goes right back to the low density, so.
I think what it does do though is it does give the option for the 8.25, whereas before we weren't even going to keep that.
Right.
So this is the concession, is we're saying, well, we'll keep that zone, and then that will be one of the options.
And have that
available
option, yeah.
To them, versus
So
before we were
in
gonna
what
strike it.
instance would future council potentially think that something less than 15 acres should stay in the low density zone?
So this is gonna apply, so if we have somebody who's got a 5 acre piece of property that's currently zoned A1. And they come in, they can ask for 8.25, or they could ask for the low density zone, cause they'll have both choices. But they're gonna look at both of them and say, what's gonna give me the greatest potential, you know, which one has criteria, which one can I work within? And on some of the smaller ones, it likely would be the 8.25. And again, they would get to make that choice. And then you would get to make the choice if,
I'm just trying to think
you felt that was-
in what instances would we say no?
if somebody with, maybe they've got 15 acres, it's a perfect square that they could perfectly develop with, you know what I mean, with, or maybe whatever it was adjacent next to.
Low density, and they're just trying to
Right.
do more, you know, neighbor complaints it's not fitting with adjoining subdivisions. It's like,
I would think, you know, yeah, buffering, whatever, cause like I said, the low density zone requires a certain amount of half acres. You know, it definitely requires more things. that
does
you're
get
gonna
to the
want
mayor's-
when it makes
does get
sense.
to the mayor's point of providing a tool and then taking it away if we, at a whim, perhaps,
But zoning is always at the council's,
discretion.
and what's the best interest of the
I get
city.
that.
I mean, so
That's what I
honestly, you know what I mean, it's
That-
kind
that's
of,
actually what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Why do we need to include that verbiage if that's the
I think it's
anyway?
probably just more of an FYI, this, you're gonna have to prove your case, I guess, you know what I'm seeing, show how this is the best fit for your
Yeah,
property.
they can say I've got.
Which
an
again, they
odd
always
shape
have to do,
layout,
but-
And got an odd shape and I need to
Right.
make it work, or I'm
Right.
combining parcels, and there are reasons.
But we could just
why
as
it makes
easily,
sense.
you know, take that out, that's up to you.
If it's already in the process, you're saying they already have to do it, what's the benefit of a double, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
that's
your
it.
thought?
I didn't understand the question.
That's not surprising. Something along the lines of
What's
what
the
he
point
was
of
saying.
double is what I heard.
Hey, listen,
What's it, what's,
I voted
well,
we laid
to my
it on
earlier
time.
analogy,
I-
what's
I
the point of
I
opening
think
an
that was
eye
just-
if
she
they
said
have
it's
to
already
go
part of the
through it
process,
anyway?
so why give the city council the right to pull it back if they already
But
have to
that
make
was
it?
the whole-
But it's more, but maybe it's more, we're trying to give us some protection that we
choose
don't
it,
have to
should the
give them
council be able to?
everyone.
Which again, you
2.25.
don't, you already have that discretion on zoning.
Yeah, then-
But I think this is more just a,
It's just.
so you know, more for the resident who's applying, just so you know.
That's what I'm saying.
But again, we could just as easily take it out and you would still have the same discretion to make that decision.
I'm fine either way.
I'll trust the council will use prudence in their decision
That's your first mistake.
and be kind and understanding if somebody says, I want 8.25.
But again, we can certainly
Didn't
take it
you
out
listen
now.
to any of those
Taking my coat off. This is getting-
He's sitting right
So
behind
are you asking to just strike if the council determines it's in the best interest?
That's what I was just
Like
looking
I said,
at.
we could just easily strike it
That's fine,
and
because it's
you can
always
still do it.
whether it's
You know,
our
yeah.
best interest or
That's
not,
the problem,
right?
yeah, that's the
I would
part of
say,
it.
why don't we
See,
just
what I
strike that?
articulated made perfect sense, it's exactly.
Let's strike that because
it's on.
You shouldn't flaunt it, you could do it anyway, why flaunt it in front of them?
Alright, so take that out and then we're
Okay,
good, what's
but-
next?
but it
Okay,
just says-
8.5,
Yeah.
discussion
Can be
text
considered.
land use ordinance.
Low density zone. I believe it's exactly the same.
Okay,
Cause
They
I
didn't
think
make
we
any
always,
changes.
we agreed
I
on
gave
that
them the
one.
last version that you guys saw and there's not one change to it.
Done,
Okay,
So there you go.
8.6, Herring Crossroads Development Agreement.
we don't want it, next. Oh, I'm sorry.
You said that out loud.
This is going to the
You wanted
planning
apartments
commission.
like crazy, that was the inner mom.
I just wanted to get your comments on it before it goes to the planning commission, they're gonna look at it, it's gonna be a PUD they're gonna look at.
That's gonna take a lot of work. I tell you.
It's got a lot of
it's a
work
mess.
and it's kind of been on reverse while we've been working on the other, there's some other things I'm gonna put in here already that we put in
You
the
know
other.
what, here's the big issue I have, we keep telling them, and they just bring it back.
They never change anything.
So, just we wanna keep bringing it back, but it doesn't change, every version's about the same.
You don't like it yet? They'll bring it back again.
Well, give it 3 or 4 meetings, maybe somebody will like it.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, extended camping ordinance.
Draft a camping ordinance, look at it, give me your comments.
Nice, John, good job.
John in charge of all the items.
That's what happens when it's not around.
But we're hoping to put it on the agenda next, they've been asked to get that approved, so we're thinking the 13th, if you like it, we love it. If you wanna change it,
Camping or.
We probably won't use it real lot.
Must be a big campground at Black Ranch.
It's pretty good.
Come on, Mayor.
That's pretty much.
Pretty good, it's surrounded.
I know the guy who's asked.
Okay, camera policy.
Well, I passed it out to everyone. This is a new policy. We haven't had any, policy for the cameras before. We've written one to control privacy and what it can be used for, and who can see it, and what you can point them at, and so forth, so. I think it's pretty straightforward, but we'd like you to read it and give us your input.
Yeah, we'd love your input. We've taken this to executive staff and all managers as well, so.
Could I get an electronic copy?
Can you send me a copy?
Was there an impetus to this? Did somebody?
Yeah, we have cameras in the building,
No.
works.
It's just, we're
camera
getting
on the
more and more cameras, and we decided we needed
Yes.
to put a policy in place to control it.
Okay, phone policy.
Phone policy is a rewrite, it's an update of an older policy, and there is some impetus for this, we've had some problems. And so I've put the old policy next to the new one on what I've handed out to you. In the red, I've written down what my rationale was for each of the changes. Hopefully we can tighten up some things that have been challenges for us.
Can I get electronic copy of it too?
If you can give him your comments, we were thinking it could go on a consent, these two would be almost consent elements, but if there's a lot of discussion, certainly we wanna let you have a lot of discussion.
Consent agenda sounds great.
I agree with
Okay,
you.
Brett, informational.
I told Gordon I have 10 items, so.
10?
Yeah.
You better go fast.
Motion
You
to
got 10
adjourn.
seconds, go.
So, number one item, and I blame Chief Carr for starting this,
I do too.
so there you go.
It's too late for me to resist.
Chief Carr kept talking about how great it was that he was in our city hall and met with our employees and met with directors on different issues that pop up. And I agree, it's been phenomenal. Then he was gonna offer one of his office to our fire chief, Riley Pilgrim. But the problem is he has to boot one of these executives out to do that. And seeing that and seeing the cross networking, I'll say phone again. It goes on about, you know, the police officers being out of the building around to be able to talk to on issues and staff, they recognize issues throughout the city. I talked to Tammy, cause we're not gonna have a need for an office over on that south, along the second floor for a while. We will be using another one of them. Now Layton's starting to move out and move on. And, she says she can let Chief Pilgrim have that office, cause he doesn't have an office actually, work out of his truck. And they've been trying to find a home for him, and he felt like I have been concerned about getting that relationship close back with our firefighters here locally, that we might slip away a little bit less in a while. So he actually, we told him on Monday, he actually phoned up to Chief Peterson to make sure he had no concerns with it. Chief Peterson gets the networking and everything we get out about having a local fire close to us and answer questions and work with us, network us.
Charge it $50 bucks.
I just said, just
Rental,
send them a
$50
bill.
room rental.
Per
That's
hour.
fine.
Per hour.
Perfect.
So there you go, I've also
They'll be back for
talked to the
tax.
chair of the
Yeah, the tax increase just doubled.
She agrees with it about how, with the magical work there, and I swear Riley felt like it was Christmas Day when I offered that office to him,
That's
so,
great, that's great.
Okay, number 2.
done.
You're done? I thought you had 10.
I thought you had 10.
On,
Oh, it's a
okay,
little
chief.
teaser.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for the staff and what you've done. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
So I take it you supported that, right?
Yes, that's great.
Never got a feedback.
You missed it, man.
And $50 an hour.
Yeah, exactly. A revenue
She
stream.
also said, at the same time, we took that as a second one on it.
No,